Welcome to the Think Generational Wealth Podcast, episode 27. And I am your host, Amir Estimo. And in today's episode, we have a great show for you as I brought on my good buddy, Mannie Bonnelus, to share how to obtain funding for your business. If you're a small to medium-sized business, this is a great podcast for you. Also, could you do me a favor? Please subscribe and rate this show. Leave a review, whether you're in Apple or you're on Spotify. Please rate and review the podcast. Subscribe. If you enjoy the content, subscribe to this podcast, as my goal is every Friday to drop an episode for you. Also, stay tuned to the end of the episode where I will be sharing my contact information. And now let's jump into the podcast with Mannie Bonnelus. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Amir Estimo podcast, where today we will be talking about business funding with a good friend of mine, Mannie Bonnelus. Mannie is a native of Fort Myers, Florida, currently resides in Houston, Texas. His company, Access Capital Group, helps small to medium business owners obtain funding even when the banks say no. So we'll be talking about that in the podcast today. In return, this helps these business owners help improve their profitability, increase capacity, improve cash flow, and develop and maintain sustainability, and help also with growth and expansion. Everyone, welcome Mannie Bonnelus to the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Amir Estimo. I guess we're gonna put everybody's government out there. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I want to congratulate you on this experience and this journey into entrepreneur. And I was very pleased and happy to have a longtime friend, a sandbox friend. I mean, we go back since Jacksonville, but we won't get into that. So it's just an honor to be on this podcast, and thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you, brother. I do appreciate you coming on to the podcast, and I know that's one thing we can't get time back. We can always get money, but time is a big asset to everyone. So I know you're going to come on the podcast today and share valuable information, because I've always known you as someone that's always, when you've had knowledge, you've always been about uplifting, especially in the Black community, knowledge sharing, pushing us to be better. As earlier we were talking about me and you, I was telling you something as an entrepreneur that I'm experiencing, and you were talking about getting out of that comfort zone, right? So that was, I've always known that about you, even though you're younger, but to me it's all about, you got to put your ego to the side and learn, because you have more, when it comes, you have the experience as an entrepreneur. So this is why starting this podcast is reaching out and talking to small business owners and developing that community of like-minded. So that's why I thought of you, and I was like, Mannie is one that's the same thing. He's all about generational wealth, capital, uplifting each other. So thank you very much, brother, for coming on to the podcast.
You're welcome. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship isn't something that is taught in the traditional sense in school. But, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, because I've always had people that believed in me. And believe it or not, you're one of them. You've always told me I could do it, even though I don't believe in myself. So I could count on, I could count several times where you probably don't remember these conversations, even going back as a child, and First Haitian Baptist Church, and to going to high school. Keep in mind, Amir used to give me a ride to high school freshman year. So I've never had brothers, but you are one person I've always considered as one of my brothers. And you've always gave me good advice and always encouraged me. So you can take some credit in me having this entrepreneur spirit, because there's a lot of times where you're gonna want to do things that you feel inside that you have the capacity to do it, but you also need a village or a group of people that you could fall back on that can give you good sound advice and give you encouragement. So I appreciate you, brother.
No, I appreciate it. No problem. No, that's facts, man. Thank you very much, man. Because I know how, us being descendants of Caribbean Haitian parents, right? So we all come from the same community. And one thing is when you go to Haiti, and I've been to Haiti several times, so it's always like a community of people, right? So, and I think we have that spirit in us as being the descendants of Haitian. And I think with our generation, with the technology, us being born here too, not
all of us.
Well, not all of us, obviously, but the ones that are, and even the ones that come, because there's a lot of successful ones that come from Haiti and their success stories too. And because of the time that we're living with the technology we have and the all this stuff that we have out there that's helped progress us, right? So so that's why I've always been, that's why me and you always, we're like brothers, bro, because we have that same mindset, right? We're like, okay, me and you always talk. When we do talk, we're always talking about, okay, it's about generational wealth, right? So that's why when it comes to even capital, small business, right? They don't have, there's like this information lacking when it comes to even small business even out there. So that's why, like, if you know something, I know something, we knowledge share. That's how we all grow, and we grow together as a community, right? So so like, tell us about these, like, how did you ventured into this type of business?
All right, well, it really starts in the beginning. Like I said before, me and you, we grew up together since way back. I remember even sharing seats on the bus, and me and my sister, and you would just make sure everything goes well with us, make sure we get to class. But it's that sense of community. And one thing, when we lived in Jackson Plaza, I've always looked up to, it'd be a disservice if I didn't mention these people, like the Mapepes and these Haitian leaders that, they came over here with nothing. Yep. But they still would come over to the apartment in their big minivans, whether they're coming from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, or Immokalee, wherever, and they would come to the community. I really remember everyone that lived in the community, and they would just open up their van and bring things, because at the time we didn't have like Haitian restaurants like now we do in Fort Myers, or Haitian retail stores where you can go get your food that you're used to eating from your original culture, Haiti. So I've always looked up to these people, and I'll always be like, man, that is awesome. They just go around, they have a client base, they're in demand, they know the community, they know what the community needs. And these folks had no issue with, hey, writing up IOU notes.
Remember, they used to be in that was in that folder.
Yeah, exactly. They had a notebook, and everyone knew what you owed. And even at church, my cousin Elon's mom, God bless her soul. I mean, every day after church, she had the bonbons, the tablets, and it was just a commerce thing, and it was nothing. You go to church, You're going to get your Haitian snacks. So I've always been fascinated in all aspects of business. But one thing I've learned with business coming up in the years and all the different ventures, my biggest pain point starting a business or, any startup is capital and having access to capital. And that's something we're not taught. Yes, everyone knows you can go to a bank and go get a loan, but on a business side, we don't know what are the steps to going ahead and having those access to those capital. And a lot of folks don't even know that, 70% of small businesses that do go to the bank and ask for capital, they get declined. And that's where I felt like there was a need and there was a demand. And it was good for me in a sense, because now I understand all the working on being able to finance equipment or being able to create a business, whether it's S Corp or the difference between C Corps, and understanding how to transfer some of those personal liability onto the business side. And that way, and have the business take it upon itself on the expense side. So over the years, this is the reason I transitioned. Hopefully, I know I gave you a long-winded.
No, good, bro.
But yeah, that's really what got me into business funding. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I've done everything from medical billing, where I'm helping small businesses, small physicians with whether internal chiropractors or physicians with their medical billing and coding, and also handling their account receivable. And because I went to school, so I have a background in health information.
Yes.
And being able, when I first started that out, I would have done so much better by the knowledge I know now. Because sometimes having the doctors upgrade, a couple of years ago, the United States upgraded the medical codes and Obamacare, and a lot of things changed where these doctors were required to get electronic medical records.
Okay.
And these platforms, these systems cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. So a lot of these doctors didn't have the funds. As most people think doctors are rich and they're loaded, but they're just like any other business. And there's always going to be some cash flow issues, only because whenever you're dealing with insurance, private pay, folks take their time to pay you. Insurance pay you what they want to pay you. So doctors are seeing a lot of patients and not really seeing a lot of funds coming in. Okay. And they still have overhead. They still have a staff. So that was very rewarding, being able to help those guys out, bringing down their rejection rates down, making sure their staff know the correct codes, and making sure they're not overcoding, because in that field, if you overcode it, it's governed by the government. So you can get in trouble really easy with insurance fraud, just putting different codes so you could get more money from the insurer. So I did that, and that was, I still have clients where I still consult in that. And something I know me and you've been talking about, I've also do a little wholesaling. I've gone virtual, or helping folks that are in need as far as foreclosure. So there's just a lot of things I've done in the past, but all of it came back to being able to have capital, because any business that you do run, you will need some type of capital. Yep. And without capital in a business, I feel like your business it's like a cancer, because you need branding. That's going to cost you money. You need inventory, especially now with everyone going into the e-commerce. E-commerce is heavily driven by inventory, and inventory requires cash flow or some capital. So that's really why I got into funding business and helping small businesses Because I firmly believe that small businesses is the lifeline of our country.
Yes, yes, and man, there was a lot of points there that you made. So one thing I can admit is that entrepreneurial spirit you talked about. These Haitians in the community and how they came in. And I remember it was that I had a nostalgia moment there, just reminiscing on how these people just came.
Exactly.
They came from nowhere, and now they were leaders in our community. And then the fact you talked about, the fact you talked about your experience with, one thing you mentioned, there's a few things I pull out of here. You mentioned 70% of small business owners get declined.
Yeah.
And you mentioned doctors having cash flow issues, and I can actually relate to that. I've had a conversation with a doctor in the past, and it was something along the lines of them. Ultimately, they just was like, I don't have the money like that. And you're thinking, doctor, this is doctor. Doctors should be caking, making a lot of money, right? But that's not the reality of it. They're just like you and I. And you talked about the medical billing and how you ventured in, you built the skill set there. And I have Jim Rohn. I listen to him a lot, and one thing he says is it's the value you are to the market what determines what you get paid, right? And
exactly.
The more skill sets you have, the more valuable you are to the market. And that was interesting how you were able to branch out to that, to doctors. And then you talked about a little bit about wholesaling and how now you're doing that. And e-commerce, you're right. Right now, ever since the COVID, e-commerce business has boomed. I mean, you think about companies like Amazon. Amazon, they beat their quarterly earnings recently. Amazon, these companies, Facebook, all these companies, and they took that to their advantage, the internet. And as you can see with the quarantine, everybody being home, people are not able to get out. So what do? You get online, everything from Netflix, you get your food delivered to you. So if you're not really trying to get yourself out there in the e-commerce business, especially as a small business owner, you're doing a disservice to yourself. Because right now, that's where the world, it's been there, but I think now with COVID, it just only made the situation, only sped it up that now e-commerce is a big platform. So, and
exactly.
Yeah. So thank you.
And piggybacking about what you said, you got e-commerce like, folks know about Amazon, but you got companies like Shopify where you're able to set up your brick and mortar online and really be able to have an access to a client base that now the mom and pop store doesn't have to be local. They could be national or even international, depending on the product. So embracing technology and embracing knowledge. I'm a firm believer in self-help books and reading books and listening to people like Joe, what was his name you said again?
Jim Rohn,
Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, I remember the first time I read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was like, man, this is the best book besides the Bible. It felt like everything I've always felt, because my father is almost the same type of guy that just believe in working hard for a company and getting paid and getting benefit. But I've always found it like I've never understood why you would want to work for somebody else's dream, because the moment you clock in, you are actually, working someone else's dream. So that's always bothered. So that's why I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset. I have to mention his name, Gide. I mean, he's a pillar. I remember going into his stores. He would always have small conversation with me. And I used to love seeing how he used to have his sons behind the counter. And I always found that fascinating. Like, you could have a small business where everyone in your family could work, and also doing the community a service. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's that entrepreneurship, and you mentioned that about when it comes to clocking in, and then you're working on someone else's dream. And I think that's when I look at some of these people in the Haitian, and especially in the Haitian community, like these people you mentioned, like she, I never saw him really had a job. I always knew he always had some type of business he was doing. And
Yes, he had a radio station. He had the grocery store.
yeah.
He had, like, he was doing taxes, and I've always found that fascinating. And he always had different cash flows and different streams of income. Who knows? He probably had some rental property.
Yeah.
Because I know even going, and then he even had, he worked with immigration, helping folks with their paperwork. So I've always found that fascinating, and I've never limited myself to be like, hey, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do this for the next 60 years. If anything, when I go into a job, my mindset is to learn everything that makes this company successful, learning about KPIs, learning about customer acquisition, retention, learning management skills, learning how to, public speaking, selling. These are all skill sets that you are working a 9 to 5 that you are gaining, and you can translate that to your 5 to 9 when you get home and apply those skill sets to something that's going to pay you and your family and your generations to come. Yep. So I've always gone into a job setting to get as much resource and learn as much, so then I can apply it to my own business. And that's why I feel like I was able to navigate in different industries and work with different professionals, because I was able to bring those skill sets that I've learned in the past and apply them.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that when it comes to the learning at a job. And I currently work in process and systems. You know how many times now, if I go into a business, I would say pre-COVID, and I'm like, the process could be so much better, because I spend, and that's what gave me the idea, especially at the small business level, is to be able to help some of these small business owners, because I currently work in process and systems, because that's what's always being taught to you, and you need to learn that. You need to take that. Well, that's a skill set I can learn and apply that into my business. I think the thing is, though, sometimes some people, they spend too much time learning at a job, and then they don't go build on their dream. And sometimes that's good. That's not for everyone, because building a business, becoming an entrepreneur is not very easy. But I think that we're all born with a gift. You could, especially if you die today, tomorrow your job will be posted. So I think that sometimes with me, that scares me, because, so if I leave, something happens to me, they can just find somebody else to replace me. Whereas you can't leave a job for your kids or for the next generation. And I think as our generation, this is a perfect opportunity for us to keep that train going, keep the next generation striving, and so on and so on. Because that's how we're going to progress humanity. And
exactly.
And if you look at it too, with now we're talking about COVID, how some of these big businesses are still thriving, right? And then you have some of these small businesses that are struggling, so that's something that you putting that focus and getting into that market, I think that is great. And I do appreciate the fact that, you're taking your talents and the skill sets and you're actually applying it to who really needs it. Because there's somebody out there, a small business owner, that needs this type of information when it comes to business and so on, right? So I have a question. So my question to them, now with the PPP small business loan, what's the, I want to say, difference between the two when it comes to what you do? And I know the PPP business loan was a loan that was given to the government, right? I mean, that was given to small businessmen. That's what I meant to say. But it was provided by the government. So, is your funding along that type of line?
So a great question. So the PPP was a fund that was set up by the government, Small Business Association, to combat what's going on with this coronavirus and helping small businesses stay afloat during shutdowns and during a lack of demand with people going out. So yes, we do offer PPP type of loans where some part of it is forgiven. Now, the SBA has, I think the governments are trying to go for a third round where they are going to provide more funding for those small businesses. But with that being said, so many people lost so much opportunity for qualify for these funds because they didn't have their business set up correct. So many people are doing businesses as sole proprietary. They don't have things like the basics as far as, okay, are you a S Corp or C Corp? They don't have a lot of businesses. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of businesses don't get qualified for lending through the banks, because they don't have an official address where the business is located. They don't have an EIN number, which is basically a social security for your business. So even to get those PPP, if you don't have an EIN number, you don't have a business, an entity set up, you're not going to be eligible for that. So it's those small things that small businesses that I come across, that I'm helping them and I consult them. A lot of people don't even know how to start even building business credit. They don't even know that, business credit and personal credit is totally different. As you know, with personal credit, it's governed through Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. But on the business side, it's Equifax, Dun & Bradstreet, and Experian Business. And on the personal side, your credit score is basically based on 450 all the way to 800. On the business side, it's based on 0 to 100 scale. So if you don't have certain things set up, you know how you, on your personal side of credit, if you could have a 700 credit score and you didn't purchase anything, so you still have good credit. But on the business side, it's not looked that way. So if you have a business and you don't have no established credit, you're at a 0. So that's why a lot of people are getting declined, because they don't know how to build up that business credit. And there are steps to it. And you have to have the proper paperwork. You have to have a business account. So there's a lot of folks that commingle their personal and their business accounts to where it's a nightmare for their CPA, or even when it's time to do their taxes. And it's just things like that. And a lot of people have businesses where they think they just could write off everything. Well, if you're writing off everything, why would a bank want to lend you money? Because on paper, you have no cash flow. You don't have no deposits coming in. You're writing off. So it's those small things that people take on the personal side and they think they can bring it on the business side, but it's a totally different game. And those are some of the big things that I see why people aren't getting funded. But the good thing about it is once you start building your business credit, I mean, you're getting jumbo loans. Like it can start from $50K all the way to $250,000. So that's why I say if someone's going to start a business, make sure you do your due diligence, make sure you have your paperwork in in as far as having a real business, having a website, having a phone number, being able to Google you, because that's the first thing they're gonna do. These commercial loans, they need to know that, okay, this is a actual business. This is not a mom and pop. So if they Google your business and you registered it under your house with your house address, when they look it up, now they just see your house as place of business. So there's different things that you can do to overcome those obstacles and be able to get more funding from the banks or your local bank.
So, man, Manny, there's some good stuff you had there, brother. The business being set up incorrectly. So if you're a small business owner and you want to make sure you have all that information set up, reach out to this guy, because this guy will be able to help you. The business credit, the 0 to 100, I actually didn't even know that. So that was that's actually a takeaway for me to even know that. And you talked about how some people commingle their personal and their business. And that is so true. And it could be so tempting for a small business owner to do that, but you just have to have that willpower not, because you don't want, when it comes to tax time and all this extra stuff you have to do in your CPA, it's just, you want to make things as easy as everyone, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it's your responsibility as a business owner.
Exactly.
Then you talked about the write-off everything. And I think that's a misconception when people start a business, that they look at it as, okay, when I have a business, I can just write off as many things as I want. And you come to find out that is not how this works. And I've had to learn that myself. There's only so much you can write off. You can, but you better have a lot of proof too for it too. So,
yeah, documentation, yes, for sure.
Yeah, so those three was so if you're a small business owner, reach out to Mannie Bonnelus, because he can help you, and he's a good guy, he cares, and obviously you can see that the fact that his company, they're willing to help those people that are getting declined from these small business, from these banks, and the fact that you have more options. You know, as a small business owner, you have other options. So it's not just, okay, if I get declined, that's it, my dreams are dead. No, you have other options. So you can reach out to Mannie Bonnelus. Where could people find you and your company, Manny?
Actually, we have a website. It's accesscapitalgroupinc.com. We're on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You could connect with me. On our website for sure. It's a good place. And one more thing, I want to piggyback on the 0 to 100. Believe it or not, most banks, if you're not at the 50 to 70 points grading scale, it's pretty much automatic decline. So that's what I'm saying. Building that business credit is very important, and learning your QuickBooks. Now, you can write off a lot of things, but it's like you said, you're going into business for profit, so it has to be a balance. And there's, with technology and smartphones, there's technologies like QuickBooks Mobile now, where as soon as you fill up, you could, take a picture of the receipts. I know mileage, as soon as you drive, you could press start and it'll track it, GPS start it. So there are things that you can do to protect yourself when it does come to tax time. But just be mindful that the business is not there just for you to pull money out whenever you want, willy-nilly, or writing off everything. And if people really understood the power of owning a business, it would be a game changer, especially in our community, because there are so much benefits to having a small business, as far as being able to, pay your child. Imagine being able to pay your child up to $12,000 tax-free, right? If you're able to do it correctly through your business. Or imagine being able to build a business and use it as leverage to gain more capital whenever you want to invest into other things, whether it's real estate or whether it's commercial building, whatever it is. So these things, just having a small business is a big thing. And that's why as a child, I always looked up to those small business owners that was in our community, because a lot of them came from Miami and West Palm, bigger cities, and they were able to be responsible with their capital, save it, and reinvest into more inventory, and then be able to go out to other markets, smaller markets like Naples, Immokalee, Fort Myers, and grow their business. So, yeah, man, I've been inspired by so many great Haitian leaders that probably didn't even know that I looked up to them. But like I said, I mean, man, I remember most of my outfits for church came out off of somebody's trunk, you know.
Were they coordinated?
yeah, with the tie, with the little rubber band tie, the shirt, and then the shoes. I mean, and you'd be like, man, like I just got like 2 church outfits, and I didn't even go to Miami or Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, so I mean, small businesses, like I said, it's a big pillar in any community. And another reason I love small businesses is because even if you look into history, even the civil rights movement, it wouldn't even be possible without small businesses. The reason Martin Luther King was able to go to these different places and fight for our rights was because there were small businesses that owned factories or owned churches or owned a bakery, and they were able to get like-minded people to have private meetings and plan. And so small businesses in the African American community and even the Caribbean community or any immigrant community has always been the heartbeat of the community, because that's usually where you're gonna get the most information. That's where you're gonna be able to source some type of capital, whether it's having to send money back to Haiti, you know what I mean, or having real estate land where you can rent out retail stores for a bakery or a Haitian store or whatever it is. So small businesses is just, that's why I'm very passionate about it, because I'm a small business. So with everything I've learned as far as being able to get capital, it would be against everything I believe to not be able to share that with everybody else trying to come up.
Awesome, brother, man. Thank you very much, man, for coming on the podcast and bringing this knowledge. You know what you brought on the podcast, man, with some good takeaways. Like I said, I knew once I sent the invitation to you, you were the guy, because you always had that information sharing. You always was that type of person. So really do appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing this information, man. So thank you very much. And
no, thank you.
And so just to close out, question. So I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Now, what's one thing on your bucket list that you would love to do right now?
Number 1 on my bucket list is to go ahead and get my private pilot license.
Okay.
That's something I've been putting on a back burner. But yeah, that's my ultimate bucket list. I'm actually registered with a couple of courses to start that by the end of the year or next year. The goal is to become a private pilot and be able to spread my wings, literally.
There was always I know there was a joke sometimes. Haitians don't like, they don't like air. And you're talking. So when you said private pilot, man, that's because I've been in the air 3 times. So I've skydived from the air 3 times. So, so we're just this new type of Haitians out there.
Yeah.
All right. What one word as an entrepreneur?
Say that again.
Now, what is one word as an entrepreneur? You would.
My one word would be integrity. With integrity, being an entrepreneur, it's a lot easier, and it makes it a lot more difficult because you will want to take shortcuts. You will want to do things that, maybe you wouldn't want to normally do, but for some reason, once you start seeing that cash flow and things start happening, sometimes it turns you to your worst person. So I say as an entrepreneur, just have integrity and be in it for the long haul, and try not to cut corners and treat people like you want to be treated. So that's why I say integrity.
Awesome, man. Thank you, bro. That is so true. That is so true. One actionable book you recommend for entrepreneurs?
Oh, there's so much, so many, but I'll tell you real quick. Okay, if you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad and you did not also read the 4 quadrants, the employee, self-employed, businessman, and investor, you are doing yourself a disservice. I feel like that's one of my books that I read once a year or every 6 months, and I learned something new. And it's also helped me transition from being an employee and then being self-employed, because self-employed, those are the folks like the doctors and the dentists and the contractors. But you want to transition yourself into a business. And what is a business? A business is something that can be ran whether you're there or not.
Yes,
and then an investor, which is the ultimate goal for any entrepreneur, is where you're able to now use all those resources, all that capital, and reinvest it and make your money work for you. Because no one could work harder than money. So, yeah. So the quadrant, that's probably my number one book. I say, hey, if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, read the 4 quadrant. Because in the Rich Dad Poor Dad, he kindly goes over it. But in that book, he goes into great details, and you learn tax advantages. You learn how to build systems and how to build a team, and what next steps you're supposed to be taking once you move out of one quadrant to another. So that's my go-to.
Yes, the cash flow quadrant, and you're right about that book. He mentions it, the 4 quadrants in Rich Dad Poor Dad, but he went in so much more details, and he actually went each quadrant in details. That's what I love so much about that book. That book is very actionable. I'll put that in the show notes. But again, man, thank you, Manny. I do appreciate you coming on the podcast, brother. I really do. Thank you very much for coming in here, bringing in some of this information. Again, share with us where people can find your company.
Yes, you can find online, of course, at www.accesscapitalinc.com. You could also give me an email, ebonnelus@accesscapitalgroupinc.com. And also we're on Facebook, Access Capital Group Inc. So you could shoot me a DM or instant message or whichever. But I really want to thank you for even having me on your podcast. It was an honor. And I look forward to seeing more episodes and see where this goes and how much it grows. And I've even had a podcast in the back burner, and you've kind of sparked that for me to get that going. So, hopefully I could come back on the show. And thank you again for inviting me.
Oh, thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. So next time, everyone, this is the guy. If you need help with any type of business funding, reach out to Manny. I'll also put his information in the show notes. This is a great guy. You're a good person. You'll learn a lot from. So everyone, now it's up to you to take that action. Until next time, talk to you later.
I hope you really enjoyed this episode with Mannie Bonnelus, as he brought some really good value and some things that I did not know. Okay, if you want to reach me, you can reach me at the Amir Estimo on Instagram. You can reach me on Facebook at Amir Estimo. We also have a Facebook group called Think Generational Wealth. You can reach me out at LinkedIn, Amir Estimo. You can also reach me on Twitter, AECEO0128 at Twitter. Also, again, to help get the word out with this podcast, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast to the end of this episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, whether you're on Spotify or on Apple. All reviews are good. Whether it's good or bad, it's only going to help me get better as a podcast host. So thank you very much. You could have been doing anything in this world, but the fact that you took the time to listen to this podcast, I really do appreciate. Much love and positive vibes your way. Thank you.